The terminals of Kennedy International Airport hummed with life that morning, lights flickering against glass, announcements bouncing off steel beams, and people moving in every direction. Among the sea of faces was a thin-framed teenage boy named Eli Parker. He was 15, wearing a faded jacket too light for the New York chill, and holding onto a beat-up duffel bag that carried everything he owned. Eli's eyes scanned the Delta counters from beneath his hoodie, shoulders tight with anxiety. He had no ticket, no plan, only a desperate hope that someone might let him onto a flight to Atlanta, a city that carried one thing he couldn't live without anymore: his mother. She'd gone months earlier, having landed a low-wage job cleaning offices in the towering One Atlantic Plaza. They'd agreed Eli would stay with his aunt until she was settled, but the situation back home had grown unsafe, even violent. That's what brought him here, standing silently in Terminal 4, trying not to look like a runaway or a threat. He walked toward the counter, where a Delta agent, a man with kind eyes and graying hair, looked up and gave a nod. I was wondering if there's a way I could fly standby to Atlanta," Eli said. His voice was soft but earnest. "I need to see my mom." The agent's expression faltered just enough to show sympathy. "Do you have a booking reference or ticket number?" Eli shook his head. The man hesitated, glancing at his screen. "It's tight, really full this morning. Let me check another flight." Hope flickered in Eli's chest, just before a uniformed airport security officer approached, tall, with cold gray eyes and a jaw clenched with suspicion. "Is there a problem here?" the officer barked. The agent tried to explain, but the officer cut him off. "I need to see ID," the officer said, eyes fixed on Eli's threadbare clothes and battered bag. Eli fumbled in his wallet, offering a bent state-issued ID. The officer barely glanced at it before calling over 2 more guards. One of them, a woman with a lined face and a practiced scowl, asked bluntly, "Where are your parents?" "I'm going to meet my mom," Eli replied. "She's in Atlanta." "No guardian with you. No ticket." "That's a violation," the officer muttered. They took his duffel, unzipping it in full view of everyone. Out spilled a worn hoodie, an MP3 player with cracked buttons, a dog-eared photo of Eli and his mom on his 8th grade graduation day, and a handful of coins. Nothing dangerous, nothing criminal, just the evidence of a child who didn't have much. The woman zipped the bag shut without a word. "You can't just show up and expect a free ride," the tall officer sneered. "Come with us." He grabbed Eli by the arm and led him away. Not to a holding area, not to help, to punish. They pushed through a staff-only corridor, down a hall that reeked of ammonia and resignation. Inside a bland security room, they sat him on a cold metal bench. "Do you think this is how air travel works?" the officer said. "No guardian, no documents. You think we're just going to let that slide?" Eli stayed quiet. He was too humiliated to speak, too afraid. The woman officer called someone on the radio, her voice dry and mechanical. "We have an unaccompanied minor. No ticket. Possibly a runaway." Eli looked at the photo of his mother that the officer had laid aside. Its corners curled, its colors fading. "I'm not trying to break rules," he said, barely louder than a whisper. "I just wanted to see my mom. That's all." Eventually, they walked him out the back exit of the terminal and shoved him into the cold New York air like discarded trash. He stumbled onto the sidewalk, people staring, taxi engines humming. His cheeks burned. He could have cried, but he didn't. He just stood there, alone, defeated. Then he walked. A block from the airport was a dingy diner with a flickering neon sign and cracked windows. He stepped inside, warmth and the smell of bacon offering a brief reprieve. With a few coins, he ordered a hot tea and sat at the counter, hands wrapped around the cup. "You okay, kid?" a voice asked. Beside him sat a man in a pilot's jacket with a name tag that read Logan. Eli nodded but didn't speak. "Rough day?" Logan asked gently. Eli told him everything. Not in dramatic detail, just the basics. Trying to see his mom. Thrown out by security. Nowhere to go. The pilot shook his head. "That's rough," he murmured. Then he reached for his wallet and set down enough money for a real breakfast. "Let me buy you something warm. Tomorrow, I'll call a friend who works the Delta Gate. We'll see if we can find a safer, smarter way to get you on a flight." Eli was stunned. No one had offered help in so long. The next morning, Logan made good on his promise. He called Lily, a Delta Gate agent he trusted. She met Eli outside the terminal, smiled kindly, and told him they'd try using a buddy pass. a system for airline employees, friends, or family. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Until Officer Brantley appeared again. "I told you to stay out of here," Brantley growled. "Trying something new, huh?" Logan stepped forward. "He's under my supervision," he said firmly. Brantley scoffed. "Doesn't matter. He's on my watch list now. This kid tried to sneak in before." Lily pleaded with him. "We can get parental permission. The system allows for this." Brantley refused. "I don't care what system says. He's not getting on a plane today." Lily couldn't override a flagged profile, and Brantley had made sure Eli was marked. The plan fell apart. Again, Brantley grabbed Eli's arm, ready to drag him off. But Logan stepped between them. "That's enough," he snapped. Still, Logan couldn't fight airport security. Not in uniform. Not in this system. Eli was kicked out again. That night, Eli found a bed in a shelter near Jamaica, Queens. It was loud, smelly, and overrun with despair. But there, he met Ernest, a wiry man with a tech background and a worn-out laptop. Ernest showed him how to use free Wi-Fi to learn coding, how to set up small business sites, how to charge money. Eli devoured every lesson. He watched YouTube tutorials, practiced building basic pages, and soon offered his services to local shops. One bodega owner paid him $50 to set up an online ordering form. He saved every dollar. Eventually, Angela Brooks, a community leader, invited him to a youth entrepreneurship gathering. Encouraged by her belief in him, Eli applied for a micro grant from a nonprofit. Weeks later, the email came. "You've been awarded $2,000. He screamed with joy. With that, Eli bought a used laptop and built a real business from inside the shelter. Word spread about the teenage web developer. Clients came in. He opened a bank account, saved for a flight, called his mom regularly. 2 months later, Daniel Logan returned, thrilled to see how far Eli had come. Logan connected him to his wife's PR firm for extra freelance work. Eli now had real income, real clients. And finally, a real flight. Ticket in hand. ID verified. Boarding pass printed. Clothes clean and paid for with honest money. He stood again in JFK Terminal 4, ready to fly. Brantley saw him in line. Their eyes met. But this time, Eli looked back without flinching. Brantley tried to intervene, again. "I know this kid," he told a TSA agent. "He's flagged." The agent checked. "He's not flagged anymore." Everything was in order. No one could stop him now. He walked through security with his head high. He boarded, sat by the window, watched New York vanish beneath the clouds. And when the plane touched down in Atlanta, his mother was there. She hugged him tighter than ever. Together, they made a home. It wasn't perfect, but it was safe. And it was his. Soon, he was back in school, working part-time as a developer, supporting his mom, and building a life. Then came the email from Delta. They'd heard about his web design work and wanted him to build a site for their new youth outreach initiative. The same company that once turned him away now offered him a contract. He accepted. At the first meeting, held in a glass-walled conference room near the Atlanta airport, Eli found himself sitting across from someone he hadn't expected. Brantley. The officer had taken a side role in airline security consulting. He froze when he saw Eli. During the meeting, Brantley stumbled over his words. The dynamic had flipped. Eli was no longer a helpless boy. He was a rising entrepreneur, clean-cut, confident, and respected. After the meeting, Brantley pulled him aside. "You're working with Delta now?" he asked, stunned. Eli nodded. "Freelancer. I run my own business." Brantley stammered. I didn't know your situation back then." Eli didn't spare him. "You didn't ask. You assumed." Brantley looked down. "I'm sorry." Eli didn't say it's okay. He just nodded and walked away. He didn't need revenge. His life was the answer. Months later, a video surfaced, security footage of Brantley shoving Eli out of JFK, berating him, tearing through his bag. It went viral. Public outrage followed. Brantley was suspended, then resigned. Eli was asked if he'd like to sue, to press charges, to retaliate. He declined. He posted a video instead. "Calm, clear, and powerful. I won't waste energy on revenge. I'll use it to lift others." And he did. He launched an online academy for at-risk teens, teaching them web skills. He named it Skyward Bound. 1 year later, Delta invited him to speak at a conference. He received a community award beneath the sky of Atlanta. His mother stood cheering beside Daniel, Angela, and Ernest. From the boy who was kicked out of an airport, to the young man who now builds digital runways for others to take off. Eli's story was never about a plane. It was about flight.